It all started 3 weeks ago when I moved into the Chamberlain, a beautiful pre-war building with high ceilings and thick walls, the kind of place you feel safe in, you know. Solid. Permanent. My next door neighbor in 12B, a man I'd never seen, slid a welcome note under my door the first night. Just a simple, handwritten card. Welcome to the floor. I hope you'll be happy here. Your neighbor. It was a little old-fashioned, but I thought it was sweet. The first week was normal. The second week, the rain started. A relentless, city-drowning downpour that went on for days. That's when I first heard the tapping. It wasn't on my door or my window. It was on the shared wall between my apartment and 12B. A faint, rhythmic tap-tap-tap. It would happen at odd hours, usually late at night. I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just the old building settling, the pipes groaning under the strain of the storm. Then the humming began. It was low, guttural, and seemed to vibrate right through the plaster. It would follow the same pattern as the tapping. I'd be trying to sleep, the rain a constant roar outside, and that sound would just seep into my bedroom. I banged on the wall once, hard. Could you please keep it down? I shouted, my voice trembling slightly. The humming stopped instantly. For the rest of the night, there was only silence and the rain. I felt a small victory, but it was hollow. The silence that followed was somehow worse, heavier. The next day, there was another note under my door. Same handwriting. I am sorry if I disturbed you. It won't happen again. Relief washed over me. He was just an odd guy, maybe a little lonely. I wrote back, no problem at all. Sorry for shouting, and slipped it under his door. I heard it rustle as someone picked it up from the other side. That night, the sounds changed. It wasn't tapping anymore. It was scratching. A slow, methodical scraping against the wall, like fingernails dragging through dry plaster. It was louder, more insistent. The humming returned with it, but it was different now. It sounded less like a tune and more like mimicry. It sounded like he was trying to hum the melody of my breathing as I lay frozen in bed. I started sleeping with headphones in, blasting white noise, but I could still feel the vibration through my pillow. I complained to the building manager, a tired-looking man named Mr. Henderson. He just looked at me, confused. Apartment 12B, son. That apartment has been vacant for 5 years. We're renovating. It's completely gutted. There's no one living there. My blood ran cold. I insisted he check. He sighed, pulled out a heavy ring of keys, and we walked down the hall. The door to 12B was covered in a thin layer of dust. He unlocked it, and the door swung inward on a scene of total demolition. The floor was bare concrete, wires hung from the ceiling, and the walls were stripped down to the studs and brick. There was no furniture, no person, nothing. The air was thick with the smell of dust and damp. I felt like a fool, a crazy sleep-deprived fool. See, nothing, Mr. Henderson said, not unkindly. The storm's making all the old buildings act up. You're probably just hearing the plumbing. He was wrong. When I got back to my apartment, I knew he was wrong. There was a new note on the floor just inside the door. Please do not tell on me again. Panic, true and suffocating, finally took hold. I piled furniture against my front door. I checked the locks on my windows 3 times. I sat on my sofa, wrapped in a blanket, watching the rain streak down the glass like tears. How was he getting the notes inside? The gap under the door was barely a centimeter wide. I stayed up all night listening. There was no sound from the wall, just the storm. The next day, I convinced myself it was a prank, a sick, elaborate prank by another resident. I decided I wouldn't be scared. I would ignore it. I went to work, came home, and cooked dinner, all while the rain continued its assault on the city. I put on music loud. I refused to give in to the fear. Around 10 p.m., I took a shower. The hot water and steam calmed my nerves. I turned off the water, the silence of the bathroom, only broken by the faint drumming of rain on the small, frosted window. And then I heard it, a single wet squelch from my living room. My heart stopped. I knew that sound. It was the sound of a rain-soaked shoe lifting off a polished floor. I hadn't left my apartment in hours. My own shoes were dry by the door. Slowly, without breathing, I cracked open the bathroom door. Through the sliver of an opening, I could see my living room. The lights were off, the only illumination coming from the blue, gray glow of the city outside the window. And in the middle of the room, a tall, thin silhouette stood perfectly still, its form distorted by the rain streaked glass behind it. It was just standing there, patiently. I shut the door, as silently as I possibly could, and locked it. My mind was a whirlwind of pure static. The door was deadbolted. The windows are locked. How? How? I looked around the tiny bathroom for a weapon for an escape. There was nothing. Just tile, porcelain, and a small sealed window 12 stories up. That's when I heard the humming start again, right outside the bathroom door. It was the tune from before, low and resonant. And then a voice, a wet, gurgling whisper that seemed to come from all around me. I told you not to tell. My only choice was to hide. I slid under my bed, pulling the comforter down, my body pressed into the dusty floor. Which brings me to now, listening to the squelching footsteps as they pace my small apartment. He's not searching. He's waiting. He knows where I am. The humming gets closer, and I can smell something like wet soil and old concrete, and something sickly sweet like rotting flowers. The footsteps stop right beside my bed. The humming is directly above me now. I hold my breath, praying he'll go away. Then a single cold, muddy drop of water lands on my forehead. I squeeze my eyes shut, not daring to look. But I know he's not standing beside the bed anymore. He's on the other side of the mattress, lying face down on my bed, his head hanging over the edge, looking right at me. And as the rain outside suddenly stops, the silence is broken by a new sound. The slow, steady dripping from the wall that separates my apartment from 120B. The source of the leak was never the rain, it was him. An hour ago, I was just a guy trying to outrun the storm. My GPS had died, but I remembered the old man at the last gas station, the one with the milky eye and the smell of stale coffee on his breath. Road ahead floods out bad in a storm like this, he'd rasped, wiping a greasy rag on the counter. You see anything funny near the mile 89 marker, you don't stop. You hear me? It doesn't matter what it is. You just drive faster. I nodded, paid for my gas, and dismissed him as a local eccentric. You meet a lot of them on long, lonely drives. Then, right as my odometer ticked over to show I was 88.9 miles from that gas station, my engine sputtered, coughed, and died. The car rolled to a silent stop on the shoulder of the road. I tried the ignition. Nothing. I tried the hazards. A weak flicker, then darkness. The rain was biblical, a solid wall of water that turned my headlights into two fuzzy, useless cones of light. I was stranded. For 20 minutes, I just sat there, phone in hand, watching the no service icon mock me. Cars were non-existent. I hadn't seen another vehicle for almost an hour. It was just me, my useless car, and the storm. I was starting to cycle through the stages of panic when I saw it. A small, dark shape, right at the edge of my headlight beam. It was a child's tricycle, a little red one lying on its side in the drenched grass. My heart twisted. No, it couldn't be. An accident. A child out here in this weather. I squinted, trying to see past the bike, into the tree line that bordered the highway, but the rain was too thick. It was like a static curtain. I told myself to stay in the car. It was the smart thing, the safe thing. But the image of that tricycle, so small and vulnerable, wouldn't leave my mind. That's when I heard the laughter. It wasn't joyful. It was hollow. It echoed in a way that sound shouldn't in an open space. It came from the direction of the tricycle. My hand was on the door handle. Half-formed thoughts of being a hero, of helping a lost child, warring with the old man's weirdly specific warning. Mile 89 marker. I looked at my dashboard. My car had stopped right in front of a small, green sign half swallowed by weeds. Mile 89. A spike of cold dread, colder than the rain, shot through me. I locked the doors. The click was deafening in the sudden silence as the laughter stopped. I sat there, straining my ears, listening to nothing but the storm. Maybe 5 minutes passed. 10. My adrenaline started to fade, replaced by a clammy, paranoid exhaustion. I was about to chalk it up to a stress-induced hallucination when a new sound started. A gentle tapping on my passenger side window. I didn't turn my head. I couldn't. I just stared straight ahead at the empty road, my own terrified face reflected dimly in the windshield. The tapping was patient, rhythmic. It wasn't the frantic rap of someone needing help. It was questioning. Are you in there? Slowly, against my will, my eyes flicked to the passenger mirror. All I could see was darkness and streaks of rain. The tapping continued, a little louder now. My breathing was ragged, fogging up the inside of the car. I had to see. I had to know. I took a deep, shaky breath and turned my head. There was nothing there. Just the window, rain streaming down it, and the black woods beyond. Relief hit me so hard I felt dizzy. It was the rain. Twigs. My imagination. I laughed, a short, hysterical bark of a sound. And from the other side of the glass, something laughed at me. The exact same sound, just wet. I scrambled back against my door, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. My eyes were glued to that empty passenger window. The tapping started again, but this time it was on the roof. Directly above my head, heavy, deliberate thuds like someone was walking up there. Then it moved to the windshield, and a shape began to resolve itself out of the rain and darkness. It wasn't a child. It was tall and unnaturally thin, its limbs too long, its joints bending at angles that were just wrong. It was crouched on the hood of my car, its face pressed against the glass. I couldn't see its features, only a pale, distorted smudge that vaguely resembled a human face, its mouth wide in a silent, laughing O. It had no eyes. It lifted one of its long, spindly hands and dragged a single, nail-like finger down the windshield, leaving a thin, greasy smear. The sound was like a scream. I finally found my voice and let out a choked yell, fumbling with the ignition again, my hands shaking too violently to fit the key in properly. "Turn! Damn you, turn!" The thing on the hood tilted its head, its eyeless face tracking my movements. And then the engine caught. It roared to life with a violent shudder. The headlights flared to full brightness, illuminating the creature in stark, horrifying detail. Its skin was the color of pond scum, stretched tight over a skeletal frame. Without a second thought, I slammed the car into drive and stomped on the gas. The tires spun in the mud for a terrifying second before catching. The car lurched forward, and the thing was thrown from the hood. I didn't look back. I drove, my foot pressing the accelerator to the floor. The car shuddered and groaned, but I didn't care. I just needed to get away. Away from mile 89. Away from that laugh. After what felt like an eternity, the rain began to ease up. The highway started to look normal again. I saw the distant lights of a town and allowed myself a single, shuddering breath of relief. I made it. I was safe. I risked a glance in my rearview mirror. The road behind me was empty. Thank God. I turned my attention back to the road ahead, my shoulders slumping as the last of the adrenaline drained away. I was exhausted, but I was alive. And then, from the back seat, right behind my ear, a small, childlike voice whispered, wetly, "You forgot your tricycle?" My grandfather passed 2 months ago and left me his cabin. The cabin he built with his own hands. The place I spent summers in as a kid. It was my sanctuary. When I arrived yesterday, it was just as I remembered it. The smell of pine and wood smoke, the worn armchair by the fireplace, the shelves of old books. The rain started in the afternoon, a gentle patter that promised a cozy night in. Tucked away in his desk drawer, I found a leather-bound journal and a rusty, old key. The journal was filled with his familiar, spidery handwriting. Most of it was just notes about repairs, observations about the wildlife. But the last few entries were different. They were frantic, paranoid. The rain makes it restless. One entry read, "It feels the water in the ground. It wants to rise." Another said, "The humming is in the walls again. The old sickness is strong in me. I don't have much time. Someone has to be the keeper." I didn't understand. I thought maybe he'd gotten confused in his final days. The last entry was dated the day before he died. It was just 4 words, "The root cellar." Now, curiosity got better of me. The root cellar was the one place Grandpa never let me go. The door, set at an angle into the earth behind the cabin, was always padlocked. The key I found fit perfectly. The lock groaned open, and I pulled the heavy wooden doors apart, revealing a set of steep, stone steps leading down into the darkness. The air that rose up smelled of damp earth, potatoes, and something else. Something vaguely metallic and wrong. I used my phone's flashlight to guide my way down. The cellar was small, just a single room with stone walls and shelves for preserves. In the center of the packed dirt floor was a patch of earth that was clearly disturbed. It was looser, darker, and lying beside it was a shovel. I should have left then. I should have closed the door, locked it, and driven back to the city. But it felt important. It felt like his last request. So, I started digging. The work was hard, the dirt was dense and full of roots. After about 2 feet, my shovel hit something hard. It was the wooden box. As soon as my fingers touched the wood, a jolt went through me, like static electricity. And I heard his voice, my grandfather's voice, not as a memory, but as a clear, present thought inside my own mind. Thank you. It's time. I carried the box outside into the now pouring rain. I don't know why. I just knew I had to. I set it on the ground and stared at it, 1,000 questions racing through my mind. What was this? What sickness was he talking about? What was the keeper? That's when the second voice started. It wasn't human. It was ancient and slow, a whisper that seemed to come from the trees, the ground, the rain itself. It didn't use words, but feelings. Images. It showed me a forest without birds. It showed me fields of withered crops under a sunless sky. It showed me a hunger that could swallow the world. And it begged me not to open the box. So here I am, trapped between 2 commands. My grandfather, the man I loved and trusted, is telling me my family has a duty, that what's inside the box isn't evil, it's just a part of this land, a heart. And that every 50 years it needs to be opened, to be exposed to a storm, to be fed by the rain, before being put back to sleep by a new keeper. He's telling me that the sickness he felt was just the land choosing him, and now it's choosing me. It's an honor, he says. But the other voice, the voice of the whispering woods, is telling me my grandfather was a fool, that he was tricked. It's telling me that the box doesn't contain a heart, it contains a seed of something that fell from the stars a long, long time ago, and that my family hasn't been its keepers, but its jailers. The sickness isn't an honor, it's a parasitic bond. It's the thing inside the box marking its warden. It whispers that opening the box, even for a second, will give it just enough strength to finally break free. The rain is coming down harder, washing the mud from the carvings. They seem to squirm in the low light. My hands are shaking. Who do I trust? The memory of the man I love, or the primal fear screaming from every corner of this forest? Grandpa's voice is so reassuring, so calm. It's all right, son. It's our way. It's always been our way. Just a sliver of the lid. Let it drink. Then you will know your purpose. I look at my hands. They're pale and trembling, but they feel strong. There's a strange energy humming under my skin. The sickness, I can feel it. A connection to the soil beneath my knees, to the roots coiling in the dark. It doesn't feel evil. It feels powerful. With a final, ragged breath, I make my choice. I trust my grandfather. I place my thumbs on the lid of the box. The whispering from the woods rises to a desperate, howling gale, trying to stop me. But Grandpa's voice is louder and warmer. That's it. You're the keeper now. I pry the lid open just a crack. For a moment, nothing happens. Then, a thin, black tendril, no thicker than a thread, snakes out of the opening. It's not wood. It's not a root. It's something else, something slick and living. It whips through the air before plunging into the back of my hand. The pain is blinding, white hot, but I can't scream. I can't let go. I watch in horror as the blackness spreads from the wound, crawling up my arm in a web of dark veins. The box falls from my other hand, its lid swinging wide open. It's empty. It was always empty. The sickness wasn't a bond with the thing in the box. The box was just a focus, a key. The sickness is the thing. It lives in the bloodline, passed from generation to generation. And the ritual isn't to feed it, it's to let it out. My grandfather wasn't telling me to become the new keeper. He was tired of being the prison. In his last moments, he chose to set himself free by passing the curse entirely to me. The voice of the forest wasn't a warning. It was a plea. The pain in my arm subsides, replaced by a deep, cold humming. The rain doesn't feel cold anymore. The whispering in the woods has gone silent, replaced by my grandfather's voice, no longer in my head but coming from my own mouth. Finally it rasps, a sound of dry leaves and cracking soil. Free.